Let me call the subcommittee hearing to order, and let me welcome the distinguished ranking member and our witnesses and guests to this subcommittee hearing on DoD science and technology programs. I don't think any of us need to be convinced that the money we spend on science and technology is the basis for our country's future security. I was pleased in the President's budget that if you take these accounts together, at least they're basically flat and not going down. I guess that's looking for some good news. But of course, it's not just how much money you spend, it's how you spend it. And those are some of the issues that we want to get into with our distinguished group of panelists. So without going any further, I'm happy to yield to gentleman from Rhode Island, Mr. Langevin, for any comments he'd like to make.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I really do want to thank all of our witnesses for joining us today. All of you oversee a portfolio of issues that I have particular interest in, and obviously defense research is an area of great importance to all of us, and I know that we can all appreciate the benefit of your testimony today. The health and vibrancy of our defense science and technology enterprise is critical, not just to our national defense, but to our nation's innovative edge in the world economy. And I'm pleased that the President's budget request recognizes this and largely preserves the investments that our warfighters will depend on in future years. However, I am deeply concerned about the effect of sequestration is having on our science and technology investment base. And I know you all touched on this in your prepared testimony, but I'd appreciate it if in your opening remarks you could speak to the long-term effects of sequestration, to the research and development being undertaken by the Department, as well as to the longer-term effects on your workforce. Sequestration is, of course, not occurring in a vacuum, and there are compelling longer-term trends toward ever more sophisticated technology for our warfighters, requiring an ever more capable RD&T workforce. I believe that DoD has an important role to play in responding to those trends across the STEM spectrum, from the K-12 education efforts that prepare a pipeline of competent operators and maintainers of cutting-edge technology, to the basic research that expands our understanding of disciplines affecting our national security. Mr. Schaefer, you mentioned these challenges in your testimony, and I certainly look forward to exploring how Congress might assist DoD in addressing those needs. It's imperative that to preserve the vitality of the workforce. Similarly, Mr. Schaefer and each of the service representatives, I'd be interested in an update on your examination of laboratory facilities and whether action is needed at the congressional level to ensure the vitality of those institutions. I would also appreciate an update on the Rapid Innovation Program. While I know that this is not the venue for detailed discussion of your entire portfolio, it certainly would come as no surprise to the Chairman or to our witnesses that I'm particularly interested in hearing your comments on just a few areas. Dr. Walker, Ms. Miller, and Admiral Kunder, you highlighted particular efforts within the directed energy field that show particular promise, and I'd be interested in hearing more from our panel on DoD efforts in that regime. I'd also welcome comment, Admiral, on your development of unmanned undersea vehicles, which you and I have had a chance to talk about many times. And finally, I recognize that you have all highlighted the critically important role that cyber innovation plays in our defense enterprise, and I look forward to hearing more about how the Department's research could result in a stronger national defense. With that, the DoD STS enterprise is crucial to our nation's national security over the long term, and I look forward to working with the Chairman and with all of our witnesses today to make sure that we get it right. So with that, I thank the Chairman for holding this hearing, and I yield back.
I thank the gentleman, and I would also ask unanimous consent that other committee members be allowed to participate in today's hearing after all subcommittee members have had the opportunity to ask questions. Without objection, they will be recognized for 5 minutes after everybody else has had a chance. Again, let me welcome our distinguished panel of witnesses, Mr. Alan Schaefer, Acting Assistant Secretary of Defense for Research and Engineering, Ms. Mary Miller, Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Army for Research and Technology, Rear Admiral Matthew Clunder, Chief of Naval Research, Dr. David Walker, Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Air Force for Science, Technology, and Engineering, and Dr. Arthi Prabhakar, Director of Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, and a distinguished graduate of Texas Tech University. So if you want to know how come she's so smart, it's because of where she got her Bachelor of Engineering degree, just for the record. Without objection, all of your written statements will be made part of the record. I would appreciate it if y'all could summarize your comments in approximately 5 minutes. And I would be particularly interested in your summary, if you could, in addition to talking about the things Mr. Langevin talked about, kind of where we are with budgets and what the budget effects are on your programs, but also talk about the trends. What do you see as the changes? I mean, we have this hearing year after year. I'd be interested in what's different. What you see is where the movements are, the trends of what we need to keep our eyes on. And with that, I would turn to you, Mr. Schaefer, for 5 minutes.
Chairman Thornberry, Ranking Member Langevin, members of the committee, I'm proud to be here today to represent the scientists and engineers in the Department of Defense, a group that includes science and technology researchers, systems engineers, and developmental test and evaluation personnel. And I will try to address the questions on the update of the lab facilities, the Rapid Innovation Program, and the trends as we go into the question and answer. Together, the professional scientists and engineers conceive, develop, and mature systems early in the acquisition process. They work with our partners in industry, academia, other government agencies, and international partners to provide unmatched operational advantage employed by the men and women of our Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines, as well as allied personnel. When we look at the capabilities developed and delivered by these people during the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, I contend the nation has received good return on investment. Each of my other 4 leaders on this panel can cite capabilities they delivered for the war. I will cite 3 that came out of the Office of the Assistant Secretary. We brought forward the mine-resistant ambush protection vehicles, the persistent threat detection systems and persistent ground surveillance system tethered surveillance systems, and the use of multispectral imagery to detect explosives remotely. These 3 alone greatly enhanced the safety of our deployed force. We met the demands of an armed force at war. As we wind down in Afghanistan, the national security and budget environments are changing. We're heading into uncertainty. The FY 2014 budget request for S&T is $12 billion, a nominal increase from the $11.9 billion requested in 13. However, it is not possible to discuss the 13 and 14 budgets without addressing the impact of the sequester, which takes about 9% from each of our programs and each of our program lines. This reduction will result in delay or termination of efforts. We will reduce awards. For instance, we will reduce university grants this year by roughly $200 million and potentially reduce the number of new SMART scholarships in FY13 to 0. Because of the way the sequester was implemented, we will be very limited in hiring new scientists this year. Each of these actions will have a negative long-term impact on the department and national security. While there are budgetary pressures, there are new challenges. DoD leadership has made a strategic choice to protect S&T where possible. We did this to provide options for the future as well as meet new challenges that have technological dimensions. These challenges include instability in nations like Syria, a state with weapons of mass destruction that could fall out of state control, North Korean nuclear weapons coupled with a means to deliver them, the emergence of very sophisticated anti-access area denial capabilities in a number of nations, the emergence of sophisticated cyber exploitation and attack, and the increase in sophistication of advanced electronic attack capabilities of some of our potential adversaries. The challenge is clear, as is the guidance from our leadership. The President and the Secretary of Defense depend on defense research and engineering to make key contributions to the defense of our nation. S&T should do three things for national security. First, mitigate new and emerging capabilities that could degrade U.S. security. Second, affordably enable new or extended capabilities in existing military platforms and systems. And third, develop technology surprise through science and engineering applications to military problems. The Department's S&T programs are focused on meeting these goals. We have emphasized cross-cutting programs. For mitigation of emerging threats, we have focused S&T programs on electronic warfare, counterspace, cyber, and countering weapons of mass destruction. For affordability, we have an initiative called Engineering Resilient Systems. And in developing technology surprise, we have initiatives in autonomy, large data or data to decisions, and human systems. While there is very good work ongoing in each of these areas focus the DoD on some of the emerging technology areas. In summary, the Department's research and engineering program is faced with the same challenges as the rest of the DoD, but our people are performing. We appreciate the support of Congress to let us continue to meet the national security needs of the Department and the nation. Thank you.
Chairman Thornberry, Ranking Member Langevin, and distinguished members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to discuss the Army's Science and Technology Program for fiscal year 2014. I have submitted a written statement and ask that it be included in the record. Over the course of these past 12 years of war, the world has seen firsthand the value and impact that technology brings to the battlefield and how capabilities enabled by technology are critical to our soldiers and their success. The Army depends on its S&T enterprise to research, develop, and demonstrate high-payoff technology solutions for hard problems faced by soldiers in ever-changing, complex environments. Uncertainty and complexity are at the heart of the Army's challenges. The Army of the future requires solutions that are both affordable and versatile and relies on the S&T community's contributions to ensure that they remain the most capable in the world. We are grateful to the members of this committee for your sustained support of our programs. The overarching vision for Army S&T is to foster innovation, maturation, and demonstration of technology that provides increased capabilities for our warfighters. Our mission includes a transition of both the understanding and knowledge acquired while developing technology solutions, as well as the materiel itself. While the very nature of S&T puts our focus clearly on providing capabilities for the future, we continue to exploit opportunities to transition solutions to the current force. Any effective Army strategy starts with an understanding of the national military strategy, joint warfighting concepts, and both current and future threat environments. This strategy has expanded our focus from the current fight to the situation in the Pacific Rim, a situation where we may well face a more capable enemy in an environment that is much more contested and complex. Given the current budget environment and prospects for funding in the future, it has become even more important than ever that we clearly understand our current capabilities and what we need to address ever-evolving threats. With that in mind, the Army has initiated a comprehensive strategic modernization strategy to better facilitate informed decisions based on long-term objectives within a resource-constrained environment. This 30-year look requires us to think beyond the easy answers of just doing what we are doing now, but for a bit longer. It forces a new look at what else we might need to do. The world of 2040, 2045 is clearly not going to look like the world today. The threats we face and capabilities needed to address those threats may in fact look very different. It is through this type of lens that we will identify key areas in stable investment and those that we will, by necessity, begin to take risk. In the Army's FY14 2014 S&T budget, you see a clear move away from investments in advanced technology development, budget activity 3, and advanced component development and prototypes, budget activity 4, to comply with the defense planning guidance. This resulted in a number of efforts being slowed while we reinvested in applied research to facilitate that next generation of capability. In addition, you will note an increase in efforts to assess our vulnerabilities, to anticipate threats at both the individual technology level and also our integrated systems levels. It goes without saying that the underpinning of all Army S&T efforts is a strong research program that builds an agile and adaptive workforce and technology base to be able to respond to future threats. Investments in S&T are a critical hedge in acquiring technological superiority with revolutionary and paradigm-shifting technologies. This includes the development of the next generation of Army scientists and engineers. Investing wisely in people with innovative ideas is our best hope for new discoveries to enable the Army of the future. Sequestration impacts not only our ability to maintain this important investment in technology, but also our ability to recruit and retain the scientists and engineering workforce. In this fiscally constrained environment, we will emphasize S&T areas that address truly Army-unique challenges. We will collaborate with our services, national labs, academia, industry, and partner nations to solve common challenges. As good stewards of the taxpayer dollars, it is critical that we use finite government resources to maximize development of technologies to meet Army-unique challenges and constraints. It is important that we complement what the private sector is already developing and that we leverage the work being done by our sister services and allies. Most importantly, our investments must translate into capabilities as we successfully field to the Army of the future. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Chairman Thornberry and Ranking Member Langevin, and our subcommittee members. Thank you. It's an honor to report on science and technology efforts in the Department of the Navy and discuss how the President's FY 2014 budget request supports the Navy and the Marine Corps. Our objective is to support a Navy and Marine Corps that can operate and prevail in any environment. We work directly with the Secretary of the Navy, the Chief of Naval Operations, and the Commandant to strike the right balance between near-term technology innovation and long-term leap-ahead research. The Office of Naval Research, in partnership with the Marine Corps Warfighting Lab at Quantico, strives to create game-changing capabilities for our sailors and Marines while improving system affordability, communication with the acquisition community, and constructive engagement with all of our stakeholders. We do this with the understanding that anti-access and aerial denial threats will continue to increase. Cyber war challenges will also only increase and become more complex. These are not easy tasks and easy problems. We recognize that, and certainly the sequestration has had a dramatic impact. This year alone, we terminated 300 university small grants and over 50% of our future naval capability efforts. But we are up to the task, and we are still making progress. Furthermore, we are striving to get away from using $3 million weapons to defeat $50,000 threats. We must get on the right side of that equation. And I can report that we have weapons in development and being fielded that will allow us to reverse that asymmetrical cost advantage that currently is held by some of our adversaries. The bottom line imperative for the Department of the Navy is we can't just make hugely effective systems anymore. They also need to be extremely affordable. With your permission, I'd like to highlight an effort which has been in the news and highlights recently, and a specific approach to that. And that's our laser weapon system laws, as we refer to it, part of our solid-state laser maturation effort. Energy weapons, and specifically directed energy weapons, offer the Navy and Marine Corps game-changing capabilities in terms of speed of light engagement, deep magazines, multi-mission functionality, and affordable solutions. Now, laser weapons are affordable due to the very low engagement costs. Right now, we're projecting under $1 US. That's what we've seen, which is critical to our current fiscal environment. They are capable of defeating adversary threats, including fast boats, UAVs, other low-cost, widely available weapons. This laws system leverages advancements we discovered and worked with in the commercial technology for use in rugged, robust prototype laser weapon system. It's capable of identifying, illuminating, tracking, and lasing enemy surfaces and air threats. And it works. I can offer that we've been thus far 12 for 12 in our prototype testing. We have not failed yet. If you've seen the news or were able to attend the Sea Air Space last week, potentially, you may be aware that the Navy is scheduled to install the laws system aboard the USS Ponce in the Arabian Gulf in early 2014. That harsh and operationally important environment will provide us an ideal opportunity to evaluate long-term system performance. The laws has every potential for being an extraordinary success in terms of fielding an effective and affordable weapons system for our sailors and Marines. We will continue to duplicate this kind of success in our other S&T areas with our innovative research and disruptive thinking. Mr. Langevin, again, you talked about undersea vehicles. That's exactly where we want to go with that, sir. We're also trying to make existing systems more affordable and effective with improved transitions to acquisition programs. In that area, we start with the effective evolution of current systems. We move to incremental improvements and spiral development, our known technologies. And then we go on to discover disruptive technologies that are gold standard of our Navy and Marine Corps warfighting. Our research is both exhilarating and unpredictable. We balance a range of complementary but competing research initiatives by supporting advances in established operational areas while sustaining far-reaching long-term efforts that may prove disruptive to our traditional operating concepts. I would be remiss, however, if I did not mention the stellar contribution made by our entire workforce at the Naval Research Laboratory in Anacostia, as well as all the Navy and Marine Corps labs and warfare centers around the country. I certainly always invite everyone in this room to take advantage of that opportunity to go down to NRL firsthand. The work there is absolutely impressive. The people are much more so. One of our greatest challenges is to recapitalize NRL and ensure a continuation of their cutting-edge work. I thank the committee for your help in that area and helping us modernize our labs. I certainly want to thank you again for your support, and look forward to answering any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and we will, along with you, I think, watch how this deployment of the laser goes, because like Mr. Langevin, I share his enthusiasm for the potential of directed energy of all sorts, and so I appreciate getting something out into the field to see how it really works.
Thank you, Chairman.
Dr. Walker.
Chairman Thornberry, Ranking Member Langevin, and members of the subcommittee, I'm pleased to have the opportunity to provide the testimony on the fiscal year 2014 Air Force Science and Technology Program. This is my first chance to address you since I took over as the Air Force Science and Technology Executive in August of last year. As the nature and sources of conflict throughout the globe have become more diverse and less predictable, our nation continues to face a complex set of current and future security challenges, many of which are outlined in the Defense Strategic Guidance issued by the President in January of 2012. This guidance directs a renewed focus on the Asia-Pacific region, as well as continued emphasis on our current conflicts. As Secretary Michael Donnelly shared in his testimony last week, investment in our science and technology base is necessary to ensure the future balance of power and that remains in our favor. The Air Force FY14 budget requests the S&T at about $2.3 billion, which is a slight increase over our previous year's request. These investments support a robust and balanced foundation of basic research, applied research, and advanced technology development, and will provide for demonstrated transition options to support our future warfighting capabilities. This year's budget request reflects a strong support from S&T from our leadership in this challenging fiscal environment that we find ourselves. It is a balance across the warfighter's needs from near-term rapid reaction solutions, mid-term technology development, and revolutionary far-term capabilities. The Air Force has matured its S&T planning process a great deal over the past few years, improving our alignments between the science and technology and the capability gaps that are outlined in our Air Force core function master plans. The established S&T planning governance process ensures that S&T investments are well understood, structured for success, and poised for transition when completed. This process is the backbone of the Air Force S&T contributions to the larger DoD priorities and strategies, and has provided us an opportunity to be the lead for some of the department's research and strategy planning efforts, in particular in cyber, autonomy, electronic warfare, and in manufacturing technology. I'd like to highlight a few of those. The importance of the dominance in cyberspace domain cannot be overstated as the foundation for the global vigilance, reach, and power. The Air Force has placed a great deal of emphasis on cyber S&T to overcome threats and has provided systems and methods that are affordable and resilient. The chief scientist of the Information Directorate at the Air Force Research Laboratory in Rome, New York, has been charged to chair the collaborative Joint Cyber S&T road mapping effort for DoD based on the laboratory's history of exceptional cutting-edge research in cyber. Using the Air Force's Cyber Vision 2025 as a blueprint, we've developed and are executing our Air Force Cyber S&T strategy. The pivot of emphasis to the Asia-Pacific region means that missions with the expanded duration, intermittent communication disruptions, and a large array of asset capabilities. As the lead for the Cross-Service Autonomy Steering Group and as an active member of the Human Systems Steering Group, the Air Force is conducting state-of-the-art research in both human systems and human performance to better enable warfighters to enhance military capabilities as well as to enable autonomous systems to extend human reach, providing potentially unlimited persistent capability. The envisioned security environment of the future will also require military aircraft to operate in the highly contested environments. Manipulation of the electromagnetic spectrum can help us negate the integrated air defenses of our adversaries. As the lead for the Department of Defense's Electronic Warfare Priority Steering Council, the Air Force is facilitating the road mapping effort for research and revolutionary new technologies and techniques to be effective in the ever-evolving electronic warfare threat, providing the ability to operate in the anti-access, area-denied environment. The Air Force also leads the Department of Defense development and demonstration of technology solutions to decrease manufacturing risks and increase weapons affordability in the aerospace propulsion, structures, and ISR. The nation can build more capability in lean warfighting force by developing a much more efficient and responsive manufacturing and industrial base than we currently have today. We're exploring strategic issues and opportunities for moving the manufacturing considerations earlier in the design cycle to reduce acquisition costs and risks, to enable streamline our seamless life cycle value stream management, an integrated industrial-based enterprise to predict, identify, and react to supply chain issues. Our S&T portfolio has emphasized areas of great promise, and we continue to invest in adaptive engine technologies to provide better fuel efficiency and performance. We've emphasized research in hypersonic technology to provide capability to counter adversary anti-access and area denial, to actively engage time-sensitive targets, and to overcome the challenges of distance and time as we shift our focus to Pacific. Finally, we have built on our successful flight test of the Counter-Electronics High-Powered Microwave Advanced Missile Project, our CHAMP, and continue to develop the direct energy capabilities to defeat our adversaries' electronic systems on the ground. While there are still uncertainties with sequestrations and the impacts are yet to be seen, I believe this budget reflects the promise of the future of warfighting capability and enables technology that will be with us, worth the investment placed in it. Mr. Chairman, I thank you and the committee again for the opportunity to testify today, and thanks for continued support of the Air Force S&T program.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Langevin, members of the committee. It's a great pleasure to be here with you today. DARPA's objective is a new generation of technologies for national security. Now, actually getting this new set of military capabilities is going to require a lot of work from a lot of different organizations, certainly my colleagues in the Service S&T organizations, but also our universities, companies, large and small. Ultimately, it's going to be our warfighters who take the technologies that we deliver to them and implement them and turn them into real military capability. DARPA's role in all of that is to make the pivotal early investments that change what's possible for the future, the investments that really let us take big steps forward in capability. That's what we've done over our 55-year history, and that's what we're working on for the next generation. So what can that next generation of military capability look like? That is the question that shapes our portfolio of investments at DARPA. And today it means that we are building a future where our warfighters can use cyber as a tactical tool, fully integrated with the kinetic fight. We're building a new generation of electronic warfare that can leapfrog what others around the world are doing with globally available technology. We're investing in a new generation of position, navigation, and timing technologies so that our people and our platforms don't have to continue to be dangerously reliant on GPS as they are today. We're investing in new approaches for space, in robotics, in advanced platforms, and new weapon systems. And beneath all of these activities, we're building a new technology foundation as we invest in some of the emerging areas within software and materials and advanced electronics, and now adding to that some of the new technology areas that are emerging from the biological sciences as well. So if we are successful in that enterprise, our success really will mean that in the future, our future leaders and commanders will have really powerful options, real options to deal with whatever threats our nation faces in the years to come. And that really is what's going to allow us to advance our nation's strategic interests in a decisive way. That's really what we are striving for. And I'm very happy to talk, those are my favorite topics. I'd be happy to talk about any of them in greater detail. But I also want to take a minute and talk about what it's going to take for DARPA to be able to deliver on this critical mission. And as you all well know, it takes resources, both funding and people, and with that, a stable long-term commitment to these long-term objectives. We've been so fortunate to have that kind of strong support from the leadership in our department, from across Congress, and I especially want to thank this committee for the support that you've provided for our budget over many years, and in particular the work that you've been doing to give us flexible hiring authorities. Last year you expanded the number of 1101 flexible hiring slots that our agency has. I want you to know that that is absolutely essential to our ability to hire the stellar program managers that we need. They spend about 3 to 5 years at DARPA. We draw from some of the best organizations in the technology community across the country, and we simply couldn't get the people that we need without the kind of authorities that you all have supported so vigorously. So I very much have appreciated that. Now, the bad news, of course, is that sequestration is undermining what is otherwise this very strong support environment that we live in. Like others, in fiscal 13, we are taking cuts across each of our program elements. It amounts to about 8% per program element at DARPA. Our civilian government employees, all of us will be participating in the department-wide furlough as well. And, you know, just to cut to the chase, for our program managers, what those impacts mean, these are people who have come to DARPA for a short time to do something big. And when they see these program delays, when they're told under furlough that, you know, you can't work 1 day a week for that furlough period, those are enormous negatives for these driven individuals. So obviously, this one-time hit through sequestration has real consequences. It does not destroy, you know, it's not a death blow to our ability to accomplish our long-term mission, but it is corrosive. And if it continues, it will, this kind of action does in fact erode our fundamental ability to perform our mission. Let me just end on a personal note. I returned to DARPA after 19 years last summer, after spending a number of years in other positions, primarily working in the commercial sector. I came because of DARPA's off-scale impact, and I came because I knew that we needed to invent this new generation of technologies to reinvent once again how we keep our country secure. And I came for the privilege of leading this unique organization where, despite all of the challenges that we have, our people are still running to work every morning with their hair on fire because they know they're part of a mission that really matters. I really want to thank this committee for your focus on these issues and for the longstanding support that allows us to do this work. Thank you, and I'm very happy to answer questions with my colleagues.
Thank you. I appreciate all the comments all of you have made. I apologize, too. I'm going to have to leave in a few minutes. I've been drafted to go help moderate a cybersecurity classified briefing for all House members. So I'm going to submit my questions in writing to you and yield to other members. And I will yield first 5 minutes to Mr. Gibson.
Well, thanks, Chairman, and I appreciate the panelists being here today. My questions have to do with nanotechnology, and I'd like to hear first from our director from DARPA about where you're going in terms of future for nanotechnology, and then I'd love to hear from Mr. Schaefer too in terms of how you're managing this from the vantage point of the DoD with all the disparate and exciting projects that are underway in every regard.
Thank you for the question. You know, nanotechnology investments over the last decade or two have given us a set of tools that we find we can now apply in a host of different areas. So just simple examples, one of the areas where we now have the ability to make structures that are very fine, very regular, very controllable. Some of those applications tie back to what I was saying about position, navigation, and timing. So we've been able to make very sophisticated IMUs, navigation units on a small chip. We've been able to use that nanotechnology, fabrication technology in that case, to shrink devices that are vast and consume a lot of power to a size that allows them to be embedded in much smaller platforms, and really gives us the ability to maintain position information over a much longer time. And that's just one of a very wide range of new capabilities that come as as nationally we've developed our muscle in nanotech.
I appreciate that, and as a former infantryman, I think there's tremendous possibility here in terms of it being lighter, more durable, more effective. So I've been following with keen interest the research that is coming out of your organization. Very encouraged.
So I'm going to try to keep this from being a bureaucratic answer, because I hate bureaucratic answers. My job is to try to get the program aligned across all the department's components. To that end, we have set up a series of, I call them committees, but they're more than that. You heard some of our folks talk about them. SES members from each of our components with a major investment in an area like materials come together and plan out their material program, which includes nanotechnology. These are co-led by our folks, my folks in OSD, and the services, typically the services. The material sciences is led by Dr. Julie, and I'm gonna butcher her name, Christodoulou from the Navy. But she gets together with the SES level folks in charge of materials and nanoscience and plans out and integrates their program. So we try to drive down duplication, but we're also going after those things that will matter. As a former airman who spent 5 years in the ground with the Army, I absolutely will tell you, I wanted lighter equipment when I was out there. That's one of the promises of nanotechnology. Higher energy density is a promise of nanotechnology. Small, lightweight machines. And there are miracles happening every day at DARPA and at our services focused on specific technologies. My job is to try to get the programs knitted together, and I think we're doing okay with that. Services, anything you'd like to say?
I can only add, Al, sir, that the comment on the Marine Corps, lightening the load, is absolutely one of his priorities from the infantry standpoint, the Marine standpoint. And my colleagues, DARPA and the services, we've seen great collaboration there. An area of specific interest from our standpoint was on our electronic EW sensors. As the nanotechnology has shrunk considerably, we've now had wide bandgap spectrum apertures that give us much smaller size. It can be on a Jeep, it can be on an infantryman, and it can be on a ship. It gives us that ability, not only a communication aspect, but again, clearly on a defensive or offensive aspect. So we're right behind you, sir, on that.
Well, I appreciate the commentary, and the reason why I'm asking about the management of it is as exciting as this field is, the challenge is really sort of harnessing the synergy across the services. Is why I was curious. Senator Gillibrand and I, going back a couple of years ago, we raised the possibility of perhaps a clearinghouse for this, the possibility of an FFRDC, and so I'm just re-engaging again with that possibility. Certainly open to hearing all sides on this, but in the interest of time, looks like I'm about out here. But this is a topic I'd like to continue to dialogue about. Thank you, and I yield back, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, and I thank the ranking member as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I had several questions that I'd like to get to, but let me start off with this. Defense Secretary Hagel told the House Appropriations Subcommittee on Defense this morning that there's a major reprogramming request on the way. And obviously, while we have to certainly cover the costs incurred by operations overseas and maintain our faith with our troops, I am very concerned that the S&T investments that we're depending on to enable our future force could pay a disproportionate cost under such a request. And while the weapons procurement can run into the hundreds of millions per system, $100 million in the S&T world could mean dozens of promising programs that enable future capabilities. So could you describe to the subcommittee, to the extent that that you're able at least, what the impacts of the S&T, what would be the impacts to the S&T enterprise on this reprogramming, I should say.
Sir, let me take that one on first from a department level. Obviously, we can't talk about the details of the reprogramming going on. What I can tell you is that we are at a very fortunate time now. I've worked for both Dr. Carter directly, the Deputy Secretary, and Mr. Kendall, and they both very much understand the value and the long-term commitment to science and technology. So as of right now, I don't think that there's a wholesale rush to trade in science and technology for operations and maintenance. There'll be some pressure. We have a situation right now where, for a number of reasons, we have underfunded the troops that are deployed supporting our nation. But right now, we are very fortunate with the leadership in the Pentagon between Mr. Kendall, the Undersecretary, Acquisition Technology and Logistics, and Deputy Secretary Carter, that they understand that science and technology needs a long-term stable base. And we're using, I will tell you that I'm using that to every chance I can get.
Anybody else?
Sir, speaking for the Army, I can echo what Mr. Schaefer said. The Army leadership understands the value and importance of the science and technology investments and are protecting it this year.
I can offer we're very fortunate. OSD is the lead, but as it came down to the Department of the Navy, the Secretary of the Navy, the Commandant, and the Chief of Naval Operations, that's exactly, sir, how we were able to put that laws system out on the USS Ponce because of that kind of commitment. And we're very fortunate indeed that we've got the leadership that supports innovation in science and technology.
And the Air Force leadership is exactly the same. They've been trying to protect science and technology through this process. As we go through the remainder of FY13, we'll see as pressures continue to build, but so far we've had good support.
Let me turn while I still have time. So in the area, one of my favorite topics, cyber, obviously an area of interest for myself and the chairman. Where do you see the research and development in the cyber arena heading in the near and midterm, and are we adequately postured to address those challenges in the S&T community?
I'll be happy to start, and then others, I'm sure, will have others to add. Our focus at DARPA in cyber, very similar to other things that we do, ours is not an operational responsibility. Our question is, how do we shift the trajectory we're on to one that is more advantageous to us in the future? And I would characterize the trajectory that we're on today in terms of cybersecurity as one in which we patch and pray. We see an attack, we patch it up, and we hope that's enough, and then we wait for the next attack to come. That's pretty much all we really have to go with. It's very human intensive, and we're scrambling, as you see, to hire quickly enough the people that can keep up with the threat as it continues to accelerate. We're looking for a fundamentally different way to think first about cybersecurity on the defense side, but then also how to think about cyber offense in a new way. The core idea in both cases is to automate and get beyond needing to scale manually to deal with the challenges that we have. In the case of cybersecurity, we have a series of programs that are trying to find more fundamental ways to build inherently secure systems or to interrogate legacy systems and understand what level of security they actually have. In terms of cyber offense, we aim to create a capability that allows cyber offense to become fully integrated with the way our war fighters fight in kinetic terms, so that instead of being something off to the side, it's really part of how an engagement takes place, the way electronic warfare, if you like, is really fully integrated with the kinetic fight today. So, those are the visions that we have about where cyber could be that I think would put our country in a much more advantageous position, and that is the focus of our investments today.
Thank you. Well, I have other questions, but my time has expired. I'll yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Miller, I was in your testimony, you talk a little bit about continued developments in finding lighter, more capable armor solutions. So could you describe the Army's effort with silicon nitride?
Yes, ma'am. Currently at the Tank Automotive Research Development and Engineering Center, we are investigating armor solutions for tactical vehicles. We have a tactical vehicle armor program. We are currently looking at 6 different vendors, 2 of which are government, 4 of which are actually commercial. They're competing their armor solutions. We are making them comply to the long-term armor strategy criteria. We will down select to 2 vendors that will then go forward for maturation, further maturation of the armor design in the end of this 4th quarter of FY13. The silicon nitride is one of those armor solutions that is being pursued.
Great. Is it a potential solution over steel and some of the other metals used today? Are you seeing so far you think might have a potential?
Right now, it is not meeting the criteria of the long-term armor strategy, but they have been, the folks that are doing the silicon nitride work have been modifying their formulation of the armor, and then we are retesting. We expect more samples to come in and to retest against our criteria.
Yeah, that's, I think, very, very exciting. The Tactical Vehicle Armor Development Program, not only benefit the war fighter by reducing the armor weight used in tactical vehicle platforms to increase survivability as well as mobility. Do you believe that the current funding for the TVAD program is adequate to meet the needs of the war fighter?
Yes, ma'am. I believe the funding is adequate. We have armor development that exists at the Army Research Lab for fundamental armor design, modeling, and simulation. We do maturation at the Tank Automotive Research and Development Engineering Center, TARDEC, and we do believe we are adequately funded.
Okay. I think it has a lot of exciting potential there. Admiral Clunder, in your comments, you talked about the new laser systems and the 12 for 12 testing. I thought that was very, very exciting. I haven't read up on it as much as perhaps some of the others, but can you explain a little bit more about how that would work?
Yes, I can. Thank you. The significance that we always look at is in terms of the risk of the development, and we started out in a very dry desert environment. But we're in the Navy and the Marine Corps. We're out in the ocean. We're out on the high seas, and that's a very difficult maritime environment. Why do I bring this up? Our first phase was in the desert. We then moved out to the Pacific Ocean off of the California coast, and then our final test was recently done on USS Dewey, and that is a just regular destroyer down at the pier in San Diego. And why I bring that up is if we didn't functionally change the ship, we went and put this prototype laser system on the USS Dewey, and again off the California coast, it was very successful, went 3 for 3 shooting down UAVs. The reason why we're now excited about moving it out to the 5th Fleet area of operations in the Arabian Gulf area is, again, it's a very harsh environment, very dynamic environment. We are obligated to our nation to protect our high seas for the commerce of our country, our national security. We think that's a very good place to put this out there and let some sailors look at it, test it, see if there's any lessons we learn, and then if we do, we'll bring them back and roll them into our follow-on upgraded systems, if that helps.
Yeah, it's very exciting, and appreciate all that you do there for our national defense. Thank you. I yield back.
Ms. Davis.
Thank you, and I appreciate all of you being here with us today. Dr. Prabhakar, you mentioned the impact of furloughs, and certainly our civilian workforce, federal civilian workforce, which in many ways I think has been maligned of late. But I wonder if you spoke about the fact that a number of people may come in from the private sector and they're with us for a relatively short period of time. And the other issue really is one of just patience. You need a time frame when you're working with research and development. Are there some areas particularly that you're worried that will impact more than others? Does it relate to the warfighter? What does it relate to that we should, anticipate and be some concerned about?
Specifically from the furlough impact.
Yeah.
Right. So the one-time financial hit from sequestration because it's across the board, really affects each of our programs pretty broadly. So across DARPA, about 100 of our programs were affected. The net effect really is, at the specific contract level, there are universities and companies large and small that are finding out that a contract they thought was about to get signed has gotten pushed off or has now gone away. There are efforts that are underway where the funding isn't going to show up as predicted. We've worked very, very hard to minimize the impact as much as we can, but at that, at the level that we're dealing with in fiscal 13, we do start to see real consequences. One example is Plan X, which is our cyber offense research program. That's a program that is taking a pretty significant hit in fiscal 13. Because it's a relatively new program, we were just getting it underway. There, we chose to take a delay of about 4 or 5 months rather than having to stop a bunch of things that were already fully ramped up and underway in other programs. So the consequence in that area it'll simply translate to later, essentially the schedule for starting to deliver some of those capabilities to our service partners who've expressed a lot of interest simply keeps pushing to the right. I want to mention one other thing. The other place that we're seeing a lot of impact from furloughs and sequestration is the fact that we work so closely with our service partners. Our contracting times are pushing out because we're relying on contracting capability in the services.
Yeah, I was going to ask not just with the services, but also across the board in the whole government approach. Because my guess is that they also will be impacted in whether it's working with Homeland Security or Commerce or Ag, whatever that may be, where you interface. Is that another area that you anticipate that there's going to be a considerable impact, or is it probably won't have as a great a concern as perhaps working within the services in terms of the job that you all do?
So we're still really assessing the impact of the sequestration. I don't want to let Arthy's final or comment about contracts go without adding some additional context. Without getting into specific services, each week Mr. Kendall gets a report on what's the impact of sequestration. So there's a double hit with our contracting officers because most of our contracting offices were undermanned to begin with, and people were being paid overtime. So it's not just going to be a 10 or 20% reduction. It's going to be more like a 40% reduction because people will not get their overtime pay. So contracting officers were working average 50 to 60-hour weeks, our junior level contracting officers. That will stop. That means that we're going to have a tremendous slowdown in being able to get money on contract. That will have a trickle-down effect to our sub-tier suppliers, our small businesses. And we don't know the impact of how that will play out, but it will hurt our subcontractors, our big contractors, and will hurt the people who come in and try to make things happen for the nation.
I appreciate that. It's certainly a great concern, and I see, Ms. Miller, you had a comment. Just on a slightly different note, I know that we're trying to consolidate some of the STEM programs, and the DOD was responsible for doing, I guess it's small grants, having some programs around, and now we're consolidating that. We're under the Department of Ed. Do you see that that's going to be impactful in terms of schools and some of the programs? Is there a way to minimize the effect of that kind of focus, which probably has a very positive effect, but may in fact have some consequences in terms of the ed programs? It's now under Department of Ed, but
frankly, ma'am, the administration believes that there will be efficiencies in consolidation of some of our STEM programs. There was a meeting at the White House this week of the principals, and they're trying to figure out how to fully implement that. We have until 14 to figure out implementation. I will tell you that STEM writ large is incredibly important to ourselves, to everybody on this panel. Preserving the workforce of the future is incredibly important. Unfortunately, last week I had the privilege or whatever you want to say of spending a week with our Undersecretary, Mr. Kendall, and he made sure that I understood that STEM programs would continue to be one of his highest priorities. That is our future, and there are a number of disciplines where the DoD leads the federal investment. We cannot allow and we cannot cede things like electrical engineering, mechanical engineering to other agencies. We're working with the White House and the administration to try to get it right.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank the gentlelady. Her time has expired. I do think it's interesting when we look at STEM programs. The federal government, as of a report a little more than 2 years ago, has 209, and that's growing. It does seem to me we could get just a little bit more efficiency out of those programs. So I'm delighted to hear that somebody in the administration is thinking about cutting that down, presumably to something less than 209. The President's budget assumes that sequestration disappears, but it's the law. And so in hearing today, we were talking to the CNO and to the Commandant and to the Secretary of the Navy, and they were again saying that the President's budget doesn't show sequestration numbers, but all of you have talked about the dire consequences of sequestration. And then, Mr. Schaefer, in the President's request, I'm looking here, I see there's a new defense-wide program element called Applied Research for the Advancement of S&T Priorities, $45 million in new money. So we don't have any money, and it looks like we're going to have less money because of sequestration, and yet you have a brand new program element for $45 million. What does it do that's worth more money when we have all these other programs, and not to mention individual projects that may go away? Tell me about that investment.
Yes, sir, I'm happy to. So we actually took 8 old programs and consolidated them down to one because we believe in OSD in the power of competition. What that program element will do, and you heard us talking about some of these panels with SES leads and materials and human sciences and data to decisions. Each of those panels now, that pot of money will be up for bid by these cross-cutting groups who want to do specific competitive ideas to prove out some concepts to move forward and move forward more rapidly. So rather than breaking things down into little stovepipes and telling this community, you're going to have your $5 million, another community, you're going to have your $5 million, this $45 million bundled up old programs, and the concept now is we're going to have our cross-cutting panels compete and fund the very best ideas. So we want to fund the best ideas, not just tell folks they're going to have money just because they wake up and breathe. So there'll be small projects, but it will allow us to consolidate, coordinate, and make much more rapid progress, I think, in the cross-cutting areas that I mentioned. Electronic warfare, cyber, EW. That's the concept. It's not new money, it's a consolidation and redirection.
So new program element, but old money that's been rolled together.
Yes, sir.
That is somewhat reassuring, because every time I see now a new program, and they're all over the place. The President has a $75 billion new program in education.
Sure, I traded
so
for one.
I thank you for that answer. And by the way, thank all of you for your terrific work. Some of you know, some have known for some years. Some of you I've known for many years, particularly people sitting in the back rows back there, and there's always been a very soft spot in my heart for research and engineering, for the DD&R&E, for DARPA going back to the days of Vic Reese. So thank you for the great work that you're doing, and I hope that you are getting at the questions that have come a couple of ways of looking at how you're going to set priorities under a sequestration number, because while I think virtually everybody on this subcommittee and the larger HASC would like to see sequestration go away so we can set real priorities, it's the law, and we need a serious look at it from everybody, but certainly from you. Mr. Langevin, you had some more questions, I think.
Thank you, Chairman. So I know we've talked a lot about directed energy here today, and I'm definitely pleased that it's been substantial investment across the DoD in promising areas of directed energy research. But can you speak to the coordination of these investments across the S&T enterprise, and how is funding prioritized? I mean, I'm very much interested in getting the stuff out of the labs and actually getting it fielded, and the scientists tend to research this stuff to death, and yet, if according to the Center for Strategic and Budgetary Assessment, this technology has progressed a lot further than what many realize, and it's time to start fielding these things. So I want to know how you're coordinated across the enterprises.
I can certainly take the first crack at this, and I'll offer the collaboration has been extremely valuable. I'll look to my colleague at the right, the Army. In terms of their ground-based vehicles, they started some of the power source development for the laser system. My colleague to the left, Dave Walker, in the Air Force, looked at a lot of the SWAP, the size, weight, power constraints that we have developing that power when they looked at their airborne aspects. My colleague to the far left, Arthi, and I are actually working on a higher level power source as we speak. The one that you're going to see on the USS Ponce is a certain level. We know that there's other aspects when we look at larger multi-mission aspects. I mean, the very, very sophisticated ones in a more classified venue that we'd certainly love to come talk to when it's convenient. We need some additional power requirements that we're looking at and working together on. So I think cooperatively there, I think the four of us and then working through OSD is hugely supportive. I think that's been a success story of this one particular aspect. Just one. There's others, obviously. I can pass to my other colleagues if they...
Sir, I'd like to add that the Army's laser is a joint high-power solid-state laser that was collaboratively developed with the High Energy Laser Joint Technology Office funding, Army funding, and then some funding in addition from the Air Force and the Navy, working on getting a 100-kilowatt solid-state laser. That particular laser, while it was a laboratory design, the Army has put out at White Sands and is using with some beam apertures out there to actually do real-time testing of that laser in an environment to see what it can do. As the Navy reported, we are also having great success in bringing down UAVs, but they're relatively easy. Our big target, we're trying to shoot down mortars and missiles, and we just this weekend shot down a 60-millimeter mortar with that laser. Meanwhile, we understand that's a laboratory laser, and it certainly is not one that we will put on ground vehicles and go out and use. We are working on fiber laser development, again, collaboratively with the High Energy Laser Joint Technology Office, the Navy, and the Air Force to create a fiber laser capability with much more efficiency. Solid-state lasers are about 10% efficient. Fiber lasers over 25% efficient. And we're pairing it up with a mobile beam director so that we can then put it on a ground vehicle.
And the Air Force, as you've heard, has been working closely with the other two services and with DARPA in developing our laser technology, both in the devices and the power sources for them. And the step forward that we're going to now is taking advantage of the work that's been done by the other services in DARPA and taking it up to a mountain peak and shooting down to do what is of interest to the Air Force is how do we mount this on an airplane and make it into a usable system. And so we're currently starting at the first step is to take it and do the downward shot from a mountain peak and then be moving that to an aircraft would be the next step.
Well, it's encouraging that this isn't siloed and that there's good collaboration across the services. So finally, a question I have. As you know, the subcommittee has authorized several pieces of legislation over the past 5 years intended to improve the health of the labs. Section 219 of the FY09 NDAA authorized the use of funds to support various local initiatives. We also authorized and raised the spending limits of the Laboratory Revitalization Demonstration Project, which is intended to support minor MILCON projects. Admiral Gunder, could you tell the committee how you use 219 and LRDP to improve the conditions of your labs, and more importantly, please let us know where we might improve upon those authorities.
Well, first of all, I have to actually, I must thank you immensely for the help there and your staff, who we talk to on a regular basis. We truly couldn't have gotten those advancements on those labs and warfare centers without your help, and I thank you. I do want to offer that we know in the fiscal environment that MILCON will be pressurized for the coming years, and certainly at the warfare labs and warfare centers, indeed, we see that pressure all the time. Why I'm so excited about what you were able to provide us here is that just for small, relatively small numbers, we can continue to make our warfare centers and our labs relevant through these modernization efforts. I don't think without your help we would have gotten there. I truly mean that. I can put my bid in for a MILCON proposition, and we do, but the reality is there's a lot of pressures. There's ships that have to go to sail. There's Army vehicles that have to go out and deploy, Air Force, and it's just sometimes it's going to be on a lower level when you fight out for MILCON. So without your help, I don't think we've been able to make that, and I hope you can continue to give us that support, and we truly thank you and your staff, sir.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll yield back.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Nugent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank the panel for being here, particularly as you support our war fighters and the technology that you're developing. They're going to save lives, particularly on our side. Dr. Walker, one of the things I think you mentioned in your testimony was about CHAMP, Directed Energy Program, and I agree with Mr. Langevin reference to getting it out of the laboratory and out into the field to our war fighters. What we can do to move that along. Maybe you could give me an idea, because I know CHAMP, we've spent $40 billion, I believe, in development. I know it's been tested and actually has had positive results. So can you explain to me why we actually haven't put that out into the field?
Yes, sir. CHAMP has been a long-term development in the laboratory, really turning the promise of high-powered microwave for ground attack into a reality. We had a successful demonstration. I wouldn't say that we've fully tested it, but we have demonstrated that it is really a feasible capability. We had a successful flight test last fall where we went against targets, both soft and hardened, and used the high-powered microwave to upset them. The follow-on from that now is moving this forward into the acquisition process, where they're looking at capabilities and trading off concepts to determine whether or not this is something to go forward with into a follow-on weapon system. That is ongoing. In the meantime, the laboratory is continuing to develop better power supplies, better high-powered microwave sources, so as to give the warfighter even greater capability as they go forward into an acquisition program. And we're waiting to see the outcome of this concept development to see where we'll go forward with this and whether we move into an AOA here in the near future.
And I guess the question for me is what do you think the timeline is? I mean, obviously it's always great to improve a weapon system, and I got 3 kids all in the Army, so I want the best and the greatest, but at the same time I also want a capable weapon system to be deployed. You can always add on and do things to improve its accuracy or lethality. So
yeah, the timeline is a challenge right now, particularly in this fiscal environment, as we're having to make trades between other forms of attack and where this fits in and when we'll be able to afford it. I would have to take a question for the record here to give you an actual timeline of where we think we'll be coming forward with the program.
I appreciate that, and I certainly want to continue to, I don't think I have to challenge you all to move forward, because I know that your hearts and minds are in the right places in regards to this. But Ms. Miller from the Army, CRAM, if you could give me some additional information as to where we are and what we see in the future for CRAM.
Improvements to CRAM?
Yes.
Yes, sir. We certainly, from the Aviation Missile Research Development Engineering Center, AMRDAC, we have been investing in technologies to do affordable missiles that can go out and intercept rams, rockets, artilleries, and mortars, and also UAVs, because, of course, as Admiral Klunder said in his opening statement, we have a cost paradigm where we are spending much more to defeat very inexpensive threats, and that's what we're trying to drive down. So we've been designing affordable missiles that can go out and intercept, and also the directed energy solutions that we have talked to earlier are part of that equation.
And I would think the your directed energy laser is much more, I don't know at this point efficient, but at least more cost effective versus firing a missile.
Certainly cost effective once it's developed, okay, and when it's in use. The missiles that we are looking at, however, we're looking at very, very inexpensive missiles that can take out those threats, and that will be near term. And the Army has a problem right now. We are certainly using CRAM right now, and it's not the most cost-effective solution, so we're looking at what we can do to drive down the cost of that capability and then bring on directed energy as soon as we are able.
Obviously, that's the one of the futures that we have is directed energy, and I appreciate my friend down the aisle there to keep the push. And so thank you so very much.
The gentleman yields back. We've all had an opportunity to ask questions. The chairman, the real chairman, said he had questions for the record. I think I'm looking at him right here, so staff stand by. Quite a few. Again, I want to thank you for being here today. I know it's not a great joy. I've never known anyone spring for joy when they find out they're going down to testify on the Hill. So thanks for being here. Thanks for your absolutely great work. Keep it up, and please, oh please, start looking at those priorities under sequestration. I know somewhere you are, but we really need to be ready for that and see which projects and which program elements are going to survive and which ones aren't. And I know there's a lot of pain out there, but the sooner we start to step up to it, the better. So again, thank you very much. With that, the business is concluded. Hearing is adjourned.